Hello, my father and I were having some questions for Meta AI. Our question really was about how many polar bears are there? It's a curious question because there's polar bears all across the world. So we asked Meta AI, how many polar bears are there? And it mentions that according to the most recent estimate, there's about 22,000 to 31,000 polar bears. All right. And it mentions 19 subpopulations, estimations of the subpopulations on Arctic, Barents, Chuckey, East Greenland, Northern Beaufort, Southern Beaufort, West Hudson Bay, all these numbers. But it says that these numbers are approximate. And would you want more information? Okay, I do want more information. I want to know, what is the global population of polar bears over the last 10 years? What I want to know is, are they declining? Are it stable? Or is it increasing? So it mentions the same thing, 22,000, 31,000. However, this number is projected to decline by more than 30% over the next 35 to 40 years due to the loss of sea ice habitat caused by climate change. So there's a projection due to climate change of loss of sea ice, and that's going to negatively impact the polar bear population. Okay, and it mentions how the decline of sea ice has progressed faster, breakdown of the population drop, mentions some of the trends in western Hudson Bay dropped by 27%, southern Beaufort dropped by 40%. It also mentions that to note that while some polar bear populations are declining, others are stable or even increasing. However, the overall trend suggests a significant decline in the global population due to climate change. So we've got a couple things that have been repeated: climate change, climate change, climate change, decline of sea ice, negative impact on polar bear populations projected. So it made me curious because I was thinking, well, we have some populations that are declining and others that are stable, and we have some that are even increasing. So would the increase in some subpopulations offset the decrease in other populations? So I mentioned I'm not interested in opinions or projections. I mean, anyone can project anything. Those are just estimates. Those often don't come true. So again, it says the polar bear population is estimated to be around 22,000, 31,000, 19 subpopulation. We go through the same thing again. And subpopulations are declining while others stably increasing. It actually shows some data about the drop in Hudson Bay. In contrast, some studies suggest the polar bear population may be larger than previously thought. So it is interesting to note here that it does say stable or increasing, but it only mentions the ones that are decreasing. It never mentions the subpopulations it's actually increasing. So I asked again, is this total population stable or increasing? It mentions the total bear population again is 22,000, 31,000. Out of the 19 distinct subpopulations, 3 are declining, 2 are increasing, and 4 are stable, and 10 lack sufficient data. All right, so it goes into it a little bit about the different populations, and it also says that to note that the overall global population is projected to decline by more than 30% over the next 35 to 40 years due to loss of sea ice caused by climate change. This is probably the 4th or 5th time they reiterated that climate change is causing the loss of, going to cause the loss of many polar bears. All right, declining population. And then they also go into a little blurb here about the need for continued conservation efforts to protect these majestic creatures. Okay. Then I asked another final question. Is the global population of polar bears stable? And it goes in, talks about some of the International Union for Conservation of Nature and the Polar Bear Specialist Group. And they did an assessment 2020 about the population, 22,000, 31,000. Then we finally get a source from the IUCN, the Red List of Threatened Species, and additionally a 2021 study published by the journal Polar Biology found that the global polar bear population has been relatively stable over the past 3 decades. Now this was in 2021. So from 1991 to 2021, we've had climate change. That's what we've been told. So why has the polar bear population been stable? And why did it take 4 or 5 questions to get to this final answer that in fact the polar bear population is not declining, it's stable. However, some scientists are projecting that it's going to decline by some amount. Again, this is an example of how AI can be misconstrued and used to project a political ideology, in this case climate change, by prioritizing responses that emphasize those political beliefs, that is, climate change. It knew all along that the global polar bear population has been relatively stable. It had these facts, yet Meta AI would not reveal these facts until you got down to 4 or 5 questions later. And most people are not going to sit there and repeatedly ask an AI model the same question until they get the answer. So this is an example of how AI can really be misused by the tech elite for political purposes.